So hello, welcome to a new journey, the second of the second International Conference on Education for Climate Change in Latin America. We thank you all for your interest and participation today in this session called International Cooperation to Foster Education in Climate Change. And I'm honored to introduce Dr. Claudia Uribe, Director of UNESCO Office for Latin America, responsible for education. In fact, for education in Latin America and the Caribbean, calling in from Santiago de Chile, hello. And hello also to Dr. Nina Smidt, Managing Director of the International Foundation Siemens Stiftung, connected today from Hamburg, Germany. Both institutions are co-organizing this international conference. My name is Ulrike Wahl. I'm responsible for the regional office of Siemens Stiftung in Latin America and the moderator today. So I would like to propose two questions to be responded in dialogue by our guests. And if time left, we shall attend the chats from the participants. Let's start. And the introduction to the question is really that we have to be very aware that collaboration is more important than ever. We're living right now a global urgency with the pandemic, in which our capacity to survive and our resilience are key. And therefore, a change of behavior in which education has a crucial role is most needed. And that is that we have to understand what climate change means, what the problems are, and which ways of solution we should find together to put into action. So the first question is, what's key to be able to jointly impulse this change of behavior through education? And I would like to hand over to Claudia first, so that Nina then comments. And Claudia, you would have roughly 8 minutes. Same time for Nina, please.
Okay, thank you, Ulrike. And hello, Nina, and good morning to all. And let me extend a special greeting to all the participants who are listening to us, and of course to the organizers of this important conference, which we are very happy and proud to sponsor. So Ulrike, with the world's population approaching 8 billion people already, and our seemingly insatiable consumption levels that feed our modern lifestyles and fuel our unsustainable economic growth, we as humanity have thoughtlessly placed our planet's balance under unprecedented stress. Climate change and its consequences, as we all know, are already being felt across the world and are already causing unimaginable suffering to millions of people. The pandemic we are currently living may just be one of the consequences of these imbalances. So the concern over climate change and sustainability of the world as we know it is of course not new. Scientists, researchers, and activists have been warning us for several decades now on the need to take immediate action. It has been clear from the start that the scope and interconnected nature of the problem is such that concerted actions among the nations of the world that are inclusive of all actors of society are the only road possible towards a solution. As some world leaders have said, we are in this together and we can only get out of it together. In this regard, global leadership and multilateralism have been key to reach crucial intergovernmental protocols and agreements on issues such as reduction of carbon emissions and other greenhouse gases that drive climate change. We've all heard of the treaties made in Kyoto, Copenhagen, and Paris, to name a few, which have set targets that have given us new hope for humanity. However, as the movie unfolds and we witness the decision of some powerful nations to withdraw their support to these global agreements, it has become clearer and clearer that these mechanisms alone will not be enough to sustain the commitment that is required to substantially change the course of action. The high costs and political implications that these agreements entail, the imbalances between the global South and the global North that make it difficult to build and sustain the shared vision and plan of action, among many other issues, are roadblocks in a difficult but time-sensitive journey. And at another level, we are increasingly seeing how our individual choices and consumption patterns are constantly eroding our environment at an unimagined pace. As plastics and waste drown our oceans and kill our wildlife, we come face to face with the disaster anytime we take a stroll in the beach or when we have to plan to travel further and further away to find one of the few unspoiled natural spots that are left. Yet, we have been reluctant to change our lifestyles and consumption choices. We don't have much time left, and we urgently need people to be conscious, informed, and empowered, and fully understand what is at stake for humanity and for our planet, and what is the connection between individual choices and global impacts like climate change. We also need people to take action and vote, to advocate and demand from their governments the adoption of measures that protect the environment. People who are willing to introduce changes in their patterns of consumption and lifestyle because they understand their impact on our common good. And of course, we need to be building a strong pipeline of new scientists and professionals who can come up with new solutions and technologies to help us navigate these uncertain times. All these are powerful reasons why education is key and why it needs to play a decisive role if we want our societies to have the knowledge, the skills, and the mindsets for contributing to sustainable development. And education systems need to work on developing these knowledge, skills, and mindsets starting in the early grades and going all the way to the highest levels of tertiary education. The 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda through SDG 4, and in particular Target 4.7, puts education for sustainable development, or ESD as we like to call it, at the center of its transformative mandate. It calls education systems to introduce the concepts of sustainable development and global citizenship into national curriculums and learning assessments in order to develop in students the understanding that what we do today has implications on the lives of others and on the future of our planet, and to give them the tools and knowledge to put this into action. So are education systems in the region taking on the challenge? What we know so far is that many ministries of education in the region are slowly making some progress in this regard. But is it enough? Is it prioritized? We believe not yet. Mm-hmm. A quick study of student assessments in the region that we carried out revealed that most national tests are not including questions directly related to climate change, and very few to environmental protection, just to name a few dimensions. And why do I mention this? Because tests are a very important indicative of what education systems prioritize as learning goals. We have also carried out quick assessments of what curriculums are included. And what we have found so far is that what has been included is mostly related to learning content, not so much as to changing mindsets or practices. So what are we doing at UNESCO? At UNESCO, we are supporting governments to make progress towards Target 4.7 at all educational levels and in all social contexts, and to develop curriculum frameworks and methodologies that help students acquire the knowledge, the skills, the values, the behaviors that are needed to build sustainable ways of life. But because we understand the complexity of the task, we dedicate a large part of our organizational efforts and resources to strengthen collaboration and exchange of best practices among ministries of education, teachers, other relevant ministries, non-governmental organizations, academia, that have the knowledge, the research, and the experiences on many or all of the dimensions of education for climate change and sustainable development. This is why for UNESCO, an event such as this conference that brings so many relevant actors together is of the greatest relevance. We are hopeful that through this work and the knowledge and partnership of so many organizations and interested parties and actors, we can finally effectively mainstream into the educational curriculums and process all the accumulated knowledge and experience, and in that way impact the minds and the behaviors of the 160 million students who attend school every day in our region, or at least did so before the pandemic. I believe this would definitely give us all a chance for a better future. So we're very happy to be here and to start and strengthen this collaboration with Siemens Stiftung. So back to you, Ulrike. Thank you.
Claudia, I'm just going to continue at this point of time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your comments. And Ulrike, thank you very much for your warm words of welcome. I would also like to thank our audience who is joining us here today in this virtual conversation. Ulrike, before I refer to your question, and Claudia, allow me to comment on a few of the points that you have been making, I would just like to say a couple of words on the Siemens Stiftung, the Siemens Foundation. So the Siemens Stiftung is focusing its work on 3 different areas, being education, culture, and development. And for us, it is a key element that we actually focus on working together with a strong network of international partners. So from that perspective, I'm especially honored that we have the possibility here to participate in this conference. And Claudia, thanks again for this opportunity. So coming to your question now, Ulrike, I would like to address 4 key aspects that I believe are crucial in answering your question and coming to your question. First of all, the question of cooperation, of international alliance. At the Siemens Stiftung, we strongly believe in the concept of working as part of an international alliance, since only together we can really meet the challenges of climate change. And Claudia, I think this was something, that a comment that you made very strong in your statement earlier. We need to bundle our expertise, our competencies, and jointly strengthen social and cultural development. If we succeed in this, specifically in times like these, in the current COVID-19 crisis, in this situation, we might even one day look back and say that this served as a catalyst in the VUCA world. So just to outline a few aspects and to refer to some numbers, and Claudia, I would like to comment here and to add on what you have already been talking about. Climate change is faster than predicted by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in 2013. So we are likely to cross the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit within the next 10 years, long before the current estimate of 2040. So 100 million people are at immediate risk of falling below the UN poverty line of $1.9 a day in 2030 if no climate protection measures are taken. Current computer models calculate that due to climate change, between 31 and 143 million people in sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia will have to find new homes within their countries by 2050. So what this means is that the poor are most vulnerable and hardest hit by climate change. And there's a strong need to raise resilience through education for all. Hence, only together we can change something. And that is why we have to change our behavior locally, but also globally, and pursue global approaches in education. Such approaches as we aim to start here in this conference and in working together. So this takes me to my second point, climate change education. Climate change education is essential in changing behaviors. And allow me to quote here the Climate Research Center in Potsdam, Germany, with a current statement. A few weeks ago, the Institute defined 6 tipping points, and STEM education, so education in STEM subjects, is one of these tipping points. And I quote, "Sustainability cannot be imposed, it must be learned." And that is why the authors of the study argue that an environmentally and climate-conscious lifestyle should be incorporated into school lessons to a greater extent than it is the case right now. And I very much agree with what you've been saying earlier, Claudia. This is not something that only starts at higher level education, higher level school education, but it is something that needs to change in pre-K and kindergarten and in primary school education. Because already children can draw the connections and can change their behavior and learn about climate at these very early ages. Thirdly, climate education needs to be addressed in a sustainable manner and follow the logic of impact. And that is why we must constantly review what we are actually doing. We need to evaluate and we need to improve what we are doing. And my fourth and final point refers to technological innovation. STEM disciplines are encouraging factual orientation. So the ability to judge, to make decisions, this contributes to the fact that even children work holistically on innovation and think about how to creatively solve problems, especially in the area of climate education. Therefore, transdisciplinary approaches and solution-oriented education is needed. And we particularly see the need of fostering STEM education for sustainable development and social good as part of a holistic education to build knowledge and competencies for responsible and resilient local and global citizenship. And with that, I would like to give it back to Ulrike.
Well, thank you both for this very, very interesting overview and insight and focus, putting the fingers on the right topics to address. Really, we see that this is so urgent and that there are definitely ways to achieve together. And now going into the second question, when calling to action and collaboration, what would be really concrete measures and initiatives that you consider accessible and feasible and which would really have impact? Can you go into this, Nina, again, and then Claudia comment on that? You have about 6 minutes, okay?
I'd very much like to do that. And Ulrike and Claudia, if you allow me, I would actually briefly outline 3 different activities that we are currently involved in Latin America. But of course, let me mention that this is only a starting point. We need to do more. And of course, we are specifically looking forward to joining forces with UNESCO and working with you. So to outline maybe a first initiative that we started is the STEM territories in Latin America. This is an association of actors in the educational system in order to promote and strengthen STEM education. STEM territories are very diverse and context-oriented, and we are working with a number of very different stakeholders. So ministries of education, regional education authorities, universities, NGOs, other foundations. There are currently 14 initiatives of STEM territories under development in 4 countries. So we are focusing in Latin America, in Chile, Peru, Colombia, and Mexico. Secondly, I would like to outline our media portal that provides teachers with more than 4,000 open educational resources for STEM lessons. This is something that we have developed in Germany as a starting point, but have implemented with our partners together in Latin America and also in Africa. Very practical material for teachers in schools who are giving online blended learning and presence education in STEM education. 12 partners of the Latin America network, coordinated by the Siemens Stiftung, have collected all their educational media in this platform and have bundled it and are using it for Latin America. And thirdly, I would like to outline the Alliance for Education and Climate Protection. That is something where we are going to focus even more on in the future. As part of developing a climate education curriculum, teachers are faced with the challenge that they need to explain the complexity on climate change to children, balancing the economic, environmental, and social elements of the problem while demonstrating possible ways and creative solutions moving forward. This is why the Office for Climate Education, or short OCE, has been established. It seeks to help teachers and basically implement this climate education curriculum. So the OCE focuses on creating climate change teaching materials and also offers programs, concrete workshops and programs for teachers. Siemens Stiftung is a partner, and has been a partner for right from the beginning of the OCE, and is working with French foundations, the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, and a number of other partners in this important initiative. And maybe at this point of time, I would stop here with just outlining 3 of these very concrete initiatives. But what I said earlier is that and this comes back to the first question, Ulrike, we need to do more of this. We need to work even closer together. And that's why I'm specifically thrilled and excited to be here in this conversation today with you, Claudia, and to join forces. Thank you.
Good. Claudia, you have to put your micro on, please. Just put your micro on. Okay.
Sorry. Thank you, Ulrike. And thank you, Nina, for all the initiatives that you just presented, which are absolutely wonderful and which I'm sure contribute very much to the development of this important topic in our region. We would be very happy to contribute to many of these initiatives. From UNESCO, we are very much guided by what the ministers of education in the region mandate us to do. In 2017, the ministers of education of Latin America and the Caribbean adopted the Declaration of Buenos Aires, which in Article 14 stated their commitment to design and implement comprehensive programs of education for sustainable development and for global citizenship education. So this for us is a mandate and the framework under which we are advancing our program. And I would like to say also, as you mentioned, Nina, the things we're doing a lot, but we still need to do much more. So I have to acknowledge this from the start. But in order to advance on this declared objective from the ministers of education, UNESCO has committed to continue fostering sectoral and intersectoral policy dialogues and technical meetings that foster the exchange of best practices among member states and other key holders and organizations, and that contribute to promoting actions that bring education for sustainable development to the forefront of regional, national, and local levels. We still see a long way to go for education for sustainable development and climate change to reach the priority level that it needs to reach. So we are sure that it's very important to continue this conversation and this advocacy for this important topic. In terms of other actions that we are advancing, we are already advancing in the mapping of what countries in the region are doing curriculum-wise regarding climate change and other dimensions of sustainable development in order to assess whether the region is on the right track and to identify aspects which need to be further strengthened. As I mentioned before, our initial exploration of this topic still shows that there's a long way to go. We expect this mapping exercise to make visible the progress made, because some progress has been made and some countries have carried out exemplary programs. I must say that there is a lot of progress in many non-governmental organizations that are doing very strong and leading work in this regard. We still have a long way to mainstream these experiences into the formal education systems, but it's part of this mapping process is precisely to identify these initiatives and to get into the conversation on how we can bring them into the curriculum and into the regular practice of teachers and schools. With this exploration, we expect to guide the setting of benchmarks and learning objectives and the needed actions regarding teacher training, educational materials, and pedagogical approaches. We expect to end up with a regional framework in this important matter. Considering the non-formal sector, we have been supporting, and we would like to continue doing so, the efforts of civil society organizations and youth groups. We have contributed to the development of educational materials for children and youth at risk within and outside schools. And considering the importance of mobilizing youth, we are also leading the development of a MOOC for young people on global citizenship education to give them tools for understanding and acting on climate change and other societal issues. Critical thinking, socio-emotional skills, problem solving, project-based learning, conflict resolution, planning and decision making are some of the dimensions we are addressing in this MOOC. All these initiatives are in line with the ESD, Education for Sustainable Development for the 2030 Agenda Global Framework, which is the UNESCO strategy to advance ESD adopted by member states in the most recent conference of the organization organized in November 2019, which is the framework that focuses on integrating ESD and the 17 SDGs into policies, learning environments, capacity building of educators, empowerment and mobilization of youth, and local level action. None of these actions proposed can be put forward by UNESCO alone. This is why we seek to establish and strengthen partnerships with organizations who are working on the topic and who share our values and mission, such as Siemens Stiftung. Thank you. Back to you, Ulrike.
Well, thank you. I think we have to slowly come down to the end, but I would really say that both of you have resumed the very, very importance of sharing efforts, of bringing things together, because as you both stated, there's a long way to do still. And we need all the achievements and the good solutions that are already in place to put together in a more articulated way, so to say. So I think we have to close here. So many thanks for the comments. This conference is just a second milestone of following conferences, we hope. And as you stated, both a starting point to further impulse practical action and to achieve collective impact. Maybe these two, words are very important also throughout the conference that is following these 2 days. So as I see, due to the lack of time, the questions from the participants we collected in the chat will be sent to you both and to be answered afterwards. But thank you, audience. And so that's why I thank all people participating this morning in Santiago time. And we invite you to stay tuned and connected to the upcoming conferences and webinars and workshops today and tomorrow. So have a good day, you both in Santiago and Hamburg, Nina and Claudia. And salutes and goodbye to all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ulrike.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.